last half, but
Welcome to Puck Yourself, guys. Another one.
another one. Episode 12?
Yes, episode 12.
I think so.
Unfortunate news, Leafs kind of era. Austin Matthews has re-aggravated his injury, it kind of sounds like.
Yeah, he didn't play it. He didn't play. We're recording Monday. It's been a while. He didn't play Saturday as well.
Not great. I mean, they missed him. I didn't watch today. Today's game is at 2:00 Eastern. So I wasn't on top of that just because I was working. But
Maybe it is episode 11.
It's episode 11. I uploaded an episode today.
Unless you didn't post the last one, but I think it's 11.
No. Okay, so a little inside baseball here. So I posted the last one and then didn't realize I got an error, so I had to repost it today as I was checking things out.
Because it just said an hour ago.
Yeah. Okay, so was that 11?
No, that was 10.
That was 10. Okay, so this is 11.
So this is 11. Not that it really matters, but
we're keeping track.
Yeah.
Leafs have been okay.
And it's kind of been hit and miss. I was out of town, so I didn't see every game.
Yeah. It's a weird time of year because like you have games like today that are at weird times. You have people traveling. You have just like it's a crazy time, so you can't really catch necessarily all the games you want to. We had like a family event on Saturday, so I missed Saturday's game.
I missed Saturday as well.
Entirely. I caught some highlights. But where do you want to start? Where do you want to dive in?
So the last game the first game. So we have 6 games here since we last recorded. So the first game was was the Wings game in Detroit. So not this past Saturday, the weekend before, the Saturday before that.
Right.
Which was, I believe that was the game that Campbell backed up. Campbell got called up by the Wings to back up Husso because Ryan and Talbot were both hurt.
Right. And I think they honored Talbot at the beginning of this game.
Yeah, it was his 500th game or something.
Yeah, I think
so. Yeah. Not 1,000.
Husso played well. Leafs didn't really look super stellar.
Yeah, it wasn't our best night. Matthews got one on the power play. It's kind of the common theme until later this week. We'll get to some of those games where it's basically the same. It's our 4 guys do all the scoring, and the depth guys aren't really doing much to chip in. Obviously, we'll get to a couple of games where they did chip in, but it's going to be a big theme. One of my themes today, anyway. But yeah, like Matthews, when healthy, was looking good. Really good two-way. Was all over. The puck wasn't going to the net as much as he probably wanted, but just we touched on it last week. Just good two-way play. Nylander and Marner are buzzing around offensively. Tavares is still doing what he's been doing all year. Knies has slowed up a little bit in terms of production,
which I think was going to happen. Like he was producing like point per game for a little bit there, which is fantastic because it was when Matthews was really out. But that was like kind of bound to regress a little bit. Like I still think he's got a lot more upside to come, but he was like standing out exceptionally well the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean it's going to go up and down. So Wall started that game because that was after Stolarz got hurt. And then they played Buffalo on the day after, the Sunday, at home, and that's when Hildeby played. I didn't catch that game. I was on the road that day, so I didn't see any of that game. I'm not sure if you caught that game.
I didn't catch that one, just highlights.
Yeah, so Buffalo, I mean, it's not really much competition.
It's Buffalo. If you're not taking out Buffalo.
Yeah, you had them twice this week. Yeah. I watched the second one. This one was kind of the coming out party for that third line. Domi, Robertson, and McMahon. McMahon getting back this week or last week.
I like the line. I like that line.
Robertson getting back in the lineup because he was scratched 4 games in a row. And then obviously Domi went to center. Yeah, so Camp came back and Minton went down.
Yeah.
So Domi went to center on the third line. Yeah, they did go down. They were down 2-0 in this game.
They tried to claw back, and then they got an empty net scored on them. I believe.
Like Levi had like 40 shots again.
Buffalo game.
Yeah, and then they had a little bit of a break. I know you were watching this game. I caught a little bit of it, but I was watching on a sketchy stream, so it was kind of in and out. But the Dallas game, I wasn't too impressed. Wednesday
It
night.
was interesting. Yeah.
I wasn't impressed with the first period. After that, they didn't like blow them out of the water, but it just two-way play I thought was really good. And for whatever reason, we've had a lot of success against them. They were talking about the Robertson brothers playing against each other. Nick's undefeated against Jason, which is kind of crazy because Dallas is a really strong team. That's not to say Toronto's not. It's just you'd think it would be a little more even. And even Nick has outscored Jason, and Jason is like a 30-40 goal guy. So it's interesting.
This is a fun game to watch because it wasn't how I kind of anticipated this game going.
Yeah, not at all. So the third line was buzzing again that night. Actually, the first line was not very good that night. The Matthews, Marner, Nyes line.
Yeah.
Oh no, was that the night they stacked the line that night? That was the night they put Nylander up with Matthews and Marner.
Who was second line then?
Nyes, Tavares, and Pacioretty was the second line. Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the things I wanted to touch on later too. But the third line kind of led the way, and Dallas, you're very rarely going to score 4 goals on Dallas, let alone chase Ottinger. Ottinger's been one of the stronger goalies in the league this year, and you chased him. So that was a good in terms of shooting percentage, especially because they were out shooting us, and we had the lead.
It was something like it was an insane amount of shot deficit, but they scored early, and then
after Ottinger got chased, I think who went in net for them? DeSmith went in net, and he actually played really well because the Leafs were good in the third, and DeSmith actually made some good saves to keep them.
His first save of the game was like a post-to-post save with the pad, if I recall, right?
Yeah, outside of that third line, Nylander stood out. Nylander got 2. They were up 4-2. So yeah, the Leafs have been really good in the second this year. I think they're the highest scoring second period team in the NHL, which is good to see on the long change, right?
Robertson with the tried and tested, sometimes just put it on net.
Yeah. And he had 3 games in a row with a goal this week.
Yeah.
And that third line, McMahon was scoring. Domi was scoring. Domi's got his first 2 or 3 of the year.
Yeah, he's the one who tied up the game in that first period.
Yeah, that's been one of my biggest problems with him is that he doesn't shoot the puck. It's not even let alone just not scoring. He passes up too many obvious scoring opportunities to pass.
I think there's even a time in that game. There was a time in that game where, like, similarly to that point, it was like he had the option to pass, and I think he got a little bit just didn't know what to do, and he kind of stared at the goalie for a bit, and he ended up shooting. But natural instinct. I worry a little bit when natural instinct is pass first.
Listen, like some guys are playmakers, some guys are goal scorers. That's fine. But when you have an open shot, you shoot the puck. Like you don't have time to hesitate to see NHL. But anyway, he didn't do that this week. When Domi is skating, and when Domi shoots the puck, I don't mind him. But it's when he does he kind of floats around. He's not really moving his feet, and he's always pass first. Sometimes you just got to get the puck to him. I'm not saying every time. And if you're a playmaker, you're a playmaker. That's your game. That's fine. But you got to get the puck to the net sometimes. Even Marner shoots the puck, even though his shot is nothing. A muffin. So yeah, the second period. So we were down 2-1. They scored like right away in the second to go up 2-1, and then we rattled off two like back to back to take the lead, pretty much the same shift. And then McMahon made it 4-2. And when Blackwell scored late, they scored with like over 2 minutes left with the empty net to rein within one. That's when we were like, "Ooh, this could be trouble."
Oh, I'm thinking about the empty netter. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm saying when Dallas scored to make it 4-3, and there was still over 2 minutes left, I was like, "Oh my god, this could be trouble here." But then the empty netter, Tavares, unbelievable play on the boards, wins the battle, lays out to get it out to Nylander, and then Nylander, calm, cool, collective, ends the game. But just that play sums up Tavares this season. Just still getting it done.
Yeah, the game was good.
You watched that one, right?
I watched the Dallas one, yeah. And it was like it feels like a little bit of a playing up to kind of who is on the other bench.
Yeah.
Like they tend to play well against really good teams.
Yeah.
It's the teams that they, I think, maybe take casually that they get ran into a corner by.
I find when we play good teams, we don't start well. We're kind of slow out of the gate. But then when they're like, "Oh shit, we can't play like this," they get buzzed in the second, and that's the second has been our best period this year.
Yeah.
And we're undefeated. We're 20-0 or something, whatever it is. When leading after 2 periods this year. So we've been holding on the leads, even though some games didn't look great. We're getting it done. So that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
And then the Friday night game in Buffalo. Did you watch? I think you were at a party that night, so you didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Predominantly Leafs fans in the crowd. It was pretty pathetic. And obviously, we're going to talk about Buffalo later. They're not looking too hot right now.
It's a disaster in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's not good in Buffalo. We talked about Buffalo with the GM last week, basically saying nobody wants to come here. There's no palm trees here. So, but yeah, that was the shocking, and that was Matt Murray. Matt Murray's first game back.
How did he do?
He let in a couple softies.
Because he still let in 3 goals.
Yeah, the first one, I think it was the first one. There was one in the second. They scored 2 in the second. I think it was the first one was really soft. Like it was a bad goal. I don't think the second one was terrible, but it wasn't. It was savable, and the third one was not on him. I think it was just a scramble around the net.
So is this just a try out and see what works? Maybe
I think it was just to get him back in. I know his numbers have been really good in the A, so it's just to get him a game, right? And he looked good at times. I've seen him play better. I've seen him play worse. If you were to play a better team and maybe we're not scoring 6 goals in that game, maybe we lose that game because of those couple softies. But against Buffalo, we'll be okay. But I'm not if obviously Stolarz, we're going to get to Stolarz' injury. Stolarz is out for a bit, and then Wall has injury history. If it's not the worst thing in the world, if Murray has to be the backup for a bit, I don't think he's not a horrible. Like he's a very competent. He won the Stanley Cup twice as a start, so he's easily a competent backup.
I would just have Hildeby and Matt Murray handle some of the weaker games. Let Wool play up, but I don't overwork Wool.
No, but this is also a chance for Wall to stake his claim as I'm the guy.
Yeah.
This is a shot, right? Because if Stolarz is out a month to a month and a half, and he comes back and it's a knee injury, it's going to take a bit to get going, probably a little bit, right? You're a goalie. It's not the same as playing out. It's a lot of up down. You need your knees. The knees are a big thing. It's like a running back in football. So it might not. He could prove everyone wrong, but it could take a bit for Stolarz to get back on flow. And this is Wall's chance to say, I'm the guy, you're rolling with me. But it's nice to have, you have a goalie. Usually when we have a goalie injury, like when Freddie was our goalie, whenever Freddie got hurt, it was panic because we had nothing else.
No one else.
At least we're comfortable this year. We have 2 guys, and even Murray is a very competent third goalie.
Yeah.
And even Hildeby has not looked terrible in his NHL appearances so far. I wouldn't be comfortable with him as a full-time NHLer at this point. Maybe in the future, but not right now. But as short-term, I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
Nylander got another empty netter that game. I think Nylander's up there in the empty net charts this year. They were saying that
he's been getting so many empty netters. It's wild.
Yeah. The third line again was buzzing. McMahon got one, Robertson got one, Domi got one. They all got on the board and they assisted each other's goals. Matthews got one on the power play. That was a really nice feed by Nylander. He sauced it over the defenseman. Matthews got the one-timer.
Oh, I think I did. Yeah, I saw that one. That was a sick play.
Yeah. And then Pacioretty got one as well, which I thought Pacioretty's had a decent week. He got past couple weeks since he's been back from injury. He's been
solid. Stuff that I've seen of the Domi, McMahon, and Robertson line is you've got two guys who are quick but small and like seem to I think they have a bit of chemistry. I do think Domi and Nick like playing together. Then you've got that big body with McMahon who can keep up with the speed. I like that line.
Listen, I don't hate the line, and I think it works well because, like you said, they're all Robertson and McMahon are guys that move. They're quick. They skate. They get up and down the ice. McMahon's the big body. He bangs a little bit. Robertson's a shooter, and Domi's the playmaker, and that's kind of that's what your quota on the first line. Matthews is a shooter, Marner's a playmaker, Nyes is kind of your utility guy, right? That's what works, and I think what helps for Domi is that you want Domi to play. You don't want Domi to be in a line with Tavares, right? He's on a line with Tavares. Tavares loves the cycle, the play around the boards, right? That's not Domi's game. You want to get Domi in a line with guys that are moving up and down the ice, straight line speed, and then that's going to get Domi's feet moving, which haven't been this year, right? And it took a long time to get his feet moving last year too. Now, if you listened to this before, you know I'm not a huge Domi fan. That hasn't changed, but at least there's been some positives this week. Obviously, third line center, I would like a little bit more physicality, maybe a little bit more know-how defensively. But you can't complain too much. It's December here. Like, I'm not going to be too critical of the guy here. But just when Robertson and McMahon are moving, Domi's got to keep up. So it means he's going to get his feet moving. And Domi can move. Domi's a decent skater when he chooses to, but he's just standing still all the time. But if he's moving his feet like that, he's going to score. He's going to get points. He keeps doing that, he's going to get points on the board, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, another good game by them. And Buffalo is just terrible. I feel bad for their goalies, both goalies. Luukkonen and Levi have not had bad seasons, but their team is just so terrible.
Team doesn't show up.
Yeah. That was Friday night, and then so they played again Saturday. Wall played in that one. We both didn't see it, so we can't really comment too much. But 6 goals against the Islanders is not the best. I don't know if Wall had a bad night or if it just was not our night as a team. I didn't really hear much about it. I'm not sure if you watched any highlights or anything.
No, and it's just been so busy.
Yeah.
Even after this Saturday, I had to travel for a Sunday event and then working today, so I just haven't had. I haven't gone through the highlights. Yeah,
so we can't really see much of the Islanders game. Obviously, 6-3, not a great night. And the Islanders aren't really known for scoring too much. So if you're letting that many, not our best night. Obviously, Matthews missed that game. After that, he got hit in the ribs against Buffalo on Friday. And that was the same day that Berube said in the morning, Matthews is still dealing with that upper body injury. And then he gets cross-checked in the ribs and then sits out. And he sat out again today. Today's game, the scoreline is probably a little harsh. 5-2, I think, is a little harsh. I think the Jets just really took advantage of odd man rushes. But obviously, no Matthews, and Tanev didn't play today either. That's a big miss, too.
Oh, Tanev didn't play?
Tanev didn't play today.
Why is that?
Illness or something.
Okay. So you got some of the core defensive guys out. Like, it's going to be tough.
So you're throwing the pairings in a blender, and even when McCabe was out, the pairings were in a blender. It didn't look natural, right? So, But yeah, it was just kind of like Connor and Shifley just took advantage of odd man rushes and took care of business, and Hellebuck shut the door.
Ginger Giant, 2 goals, 2 assists.
Shots were even. I can't say any of the goals that I saw were Wall's fault or Hellebuck's fault. They were just decent goals. Tavares, a 2-goal game. I think they said that was Tavares' 200th goal as a Leaf. So,
congratulations, Johnny T.
We people have been very critical of Tavares before this season, kind of sandwiched in between his first year or two and then until now. People have been pretty critical of him, and me included.
I was going to say, us included both.
Yeah, but he's been really good this year, and I think it's just down to just focus on the game, focus on what you do well, and then obviously I think Berube, the way Berube wants to play, and Berube's telling Tavares to play to his strengths, right? Whereas Keefe, it was more of a free-flowing, fast game. That's not Tavares' game. Tavares is down low on the boards, win battles. And Berube loves that, and it's really worked out for Tavares. And then obviously a little bit of pressure off with the C going to Matthews now. We've talked about that quite a bit. But yeah, defensively wasn't our best effort. Too many odd man rushes. We were down. I get it, but But yeah, that's. You didn't watch today. Obviously, it was in the middle of the day. I got lucky. I got off early, so I watched the last half of the game. And even Winnipeg has struggled a little bit recently.
By recent, like the last 2-ish weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, just based on how they started. Obviously, you're not going to.
When you start that way, anything other than continuous winning is going to look bizarre.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anything else on the games?
No, other than I wish I caught more. Like that's pretty much it. It sucks. Like you have some great hockey being played, but there's just life and life.
We got lots of great hockey coming this week. Lots of great hockey
for Thursday.
There's a little freeze. They don't play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the little Christmas break, but then the World Juniors start Thursday, and then we're going to the Leafs game.
Friday.
And the Winter Classic next week as well.
I think they play Sunday too.
I believe they play Saturday.
3 games this week.
Go back to back Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
Anyway, so injury things. It was Matthews missed a couple games. Tanev didn't play today. Murray made his return this week. Camp made his return, so Minton got sent back down. Which I'm a little disappointed. I think Minton should be a full-time NHLer. We've talked about it. I don't know if you agree.
I think there's a strong argument. It's always like, okay, who do you send down? And then you've got some guys coming back who seem to be working into the mix. Like Domi's one of them. And I think you mentioned this a couple episodes ago where it's like scratching a $4 million player or whatever it is he's making.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that. So it's like, who do you send down? So long as Nick Robertson is playing really well, because Minton a winger?
Minton plays center, but he'll probably play both.
It's like it may just be a wrong time, and
honestly,
I think we'll see him again this season.
I think it kind of helps his case that he's a center, honestly, because the Leafs don't have Domi isn't really a center to me. Holmberg's not really a center to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I think it helps his case that he is a center because he has obviously played a decent amount of wing when he's been with the Leafs as well.
Would you play him as a 4th line center though?
Minton, he was playing 3rd line center. He was doing really well. Obviously,
so maybe bring him into the mix.
Realistically, he's the easiest guy to send down. All the other guys, you probably have to clear waivers, and then you'll lose the player most likely, right? Whereas Minton's a 2-way deal, so it's easy to send him down. I think that's more so what happened than maybe his play.
If he has some of that versatility, then anytime a winger or a center can get, if we do need, you've got a really nice plug. Who the more exposure and more experience you get, it's just going to pay dividends come next couple seasons.
He stayed up a lot longer than all the other guys. We had the big injury crisis. And you had Nylander, his brother, he went down pretty early. The Russian guy, Gurbenkin, went down pretty early. And Minton hung around for a while until Camp got back, right? So
Yeah, as entertaining as Gulbenkian was, it's like
he's not quite there yet. I would predict that Minton will be a full-time NHLer by next season.
I'd love it, and that gives us some great options.
Because listen, I know Robertson's playing well right now, but it's too streaky. I don't think he's a Leaf next year.
Yeah,
that's just my thought.
Is he someone you deal this year, trade deadline?
If the deal's right, yeah. Let's see what you can get back. Maybe you trade some young guys to get a. You want to get into it now. My point was going to be, okay, we'll get into it now. I think the Leafs are going to live and die by depth scoring. I think that's going to be the key down the stretch when things get important. Because you've seen since in this era of players, the core four has stayed the same. But in the playoffs, when things tighten up and they're not really those type of players for the most part, the depth guys don't step up and help out with scoring.
Even just scares me this Matthews injury. If he gets injured, you can't have that core component gone and have no other options to point to.
Like I honestly think, obviously the first time Matthews was out, the Leafs actually played well. But if Matthews and Tavares both get hurt, what the fuck do you do?
Nylander can't score 30 goals in a playoff game.
Exactly. Like people would probably say like Marner and Nylander after Matthews are the next two most important, but I'd argue that Tavares is the next most important because
absolutely
just because centers, right? Like Marner and Nylander will create a lot of offense, but Tavares was a ton of draws and it's just other intangible things on top of the scoring that Matthews and Tavares bring. That
the experience the not a deer in the headlights. The guy who's kind of maybe had a little bit more experience has, frankly, and I know he's not won a cup or anything like that, but the World Junior experience, when everything is on the line, when it's a pressure situation, even going through something like that and getting the job done, that's critical. That's just as important.
He scored some big goals for us in the playoffs since he's been here too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously we would like to keep this third line gunning. I think they got separated because of the Matthews injury. Tavares played up, and then Domi played up on the second line, and then Camp went to the third line, and Dewar centered the fourth line. But obviously that won't be long term. I touched on Dewar last week. I would like to see Dewar maybe stick it out at fourth line center. Obviously,
maybe
it's kind of tough because neither one of those guys, Dewar and Camp, are both kind of fourth line guys. So they can't really go up the lineup unless Dewar goes to the wing. That's the only way he's going up the lineup. But anyway, so what are your thoughts on that Domi Robertson McMahon line? You like it? You think long term?
I think they're finding some chemistry. I think the results are speaking for themselves. I think that the play style makes sense. I think that just overall, I think it's a line that works, and you stick it out and you give this experiment a little bit more exposure. And worst case scenario, you say, you know what, this didn't work, and they were a little streaky and it worked for a little bit, but it's not working anymore. Best case scenario, you've got an unbelievable line that you can toss out there as an option.
Yeah. I tend to lean on this isn't going to last forever. I hope I'm wrong.
The amount of production they've gotten seems a little bit overproducing. But a lot of people, it seems like a Paul Cotter at the beginning of the year. It's like oh my gosh, when did this line get so good? When did Paul Cotter get so good? And then it cools down. That's possible. I hope they keep it going. I think their play styles make sense together. I think they blend well. If they can sustain it, fantastic.
I just think that long term, if you look at the defensive side of the puck in the playoffs, are they going to be good enough as your third line? Because that's usually kind of your shutdown line, right?
You're gonna need because I don't think Nick Robertson's great defensively. I think he's
So
blocked
he's
some
not really that
shots.
terrific defensively either.
Don't think Domi is either. I think McMahon's okay defensively.
Yeah.
Get drilling.
And
like
long
if you're
term, I
gonna
can't
run with
see
that
it.
line, what can you get out defensively of players who aren't overly sizable? How can you put them into a scenario and get them into a system that brings them some like defensive reliability? Is it blocking shots? Is it just positioning? Is it clean breakouts? Whatever it may be, they are going to need to figure that out if it's going to be a viable option in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you got lots of time. Don't get me wrong. And listen, we obsess over lines all year. Lines are never going to stay the same over an 82 game season. Never.
No.
It's not possible. So with injuries, with the way guys play,
there's a degree of riding the hot hand. It's okay to try stuff out, have it work for a little bit, and then completely change when it stops.
Yeah. I don't want to keep harping on the guy. I just Robertson is just it's too streaky. It's not consistent enough. It's like he didn't score for the first 2 months of the season, and then he scores 3 goals in a week. You don't know what you're going to get, and then the rest of his game isn't going to be enough to warrant putting him in the lineup. Not really, right? And a guy who has adjusted a lot that you wouldn't have thought he would have, but has adjusted a lot, even though he's still top 6 role, is Pacioretty. Pacioretty's laying the boom this year.
Yeah, and I didn't think he was this type of player coming in.
No, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, he completely changed his game. Obviously, he was always a bigger guy. Maybe not like a prototypical power forward, but he was a big guy.
How tall is he? He is big.
He's a big guy, yeah. But it's good to see he's adapted his game a lot, and obviously he's figured out that he's not the scorer he used to be, so he has to bring other things if he wants to stay in the league, right? And he's done that very well. I've been really impressed. And the hitting, I could have seen
as tall as I thought.
No,
6'2". It's not overly tall.
It's not like super tall, but like he's still decent size.
6'2", 217 is what they have him at right now.
Yeah, that's a pretty big boy.
Okay,
that's not a small guy. I'm not saying he's massive, but just like basically, like, I thought Pacioretty could change a game, but I didn't think he'd be this physical. Is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. It was kind of short-lived. The Matthews, Martin, Nylander line. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a sustainable option?
I don't know. It depends on the second line. I think it's less so. Is that first line going to have production? Which I think they will. I think that's inevitable. But I also think that I don't know. Because my knee-jerk reaction is Nylander doesn't belong in that line because Nylander needs some space to do Nylander things. With that said, you just saw the pass that he made to Matthews and just like the playmaking ability. He is such a well-rounded player. It is honestly shocking how well he does everything. So I don't know. Is he enough of a utility player to justify having on that line and kind of taking his star power and dimming it with what you're surrounding him with? I think he's better on a second line. I think he's better if you give him a little bit more room to be creative and to have a little bit more guys looking to pass him the puck for him to be a playmaker and a goal scorer. Whereas on the Matthews-Marner line, I think the tendency is going to be to feed it to Matthews every single time. And I think that doesn't utilize Nylander to his full capability. And I think Nice plays a much better role of stick him out front of the net, have him go and do some dirty, gritty work. I think Nylander is better utilized when Nylander can be himself, as opposed to trying to fit into the system that frankly is built for Matthews on that first line.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I honestly don't. I don't. Obviously, it'll work. It could work short term for sure. You're losing a game, you need a goal. You put those guys in the ice. You're on the power play.
Yeah.
That's different. But a consistent 5-on-5 shift, I don't really trust it. You need a guy that's going to put in dirty work. And out of those three guys, who's going to go in hard on the forecheck and win puck battles? None of them.
None of them.
Right. So
maybe Matthews if he's
maybe
feeling
Matthews,
motivated.
but you really want your $13 million player digging in and out of corners when he could be scoring goals.
With frankly, what seems to be a lingering upper body injury.
Exactly.
You absolutely don't want that. Not when the asset is worth, as much money as Matthews is worth.
Yeah. Obviously, it didn't stick because the next game, Knies was back on that line, and Pacioretty was with Tavares and Nylander again. I don't think that you can. Yeah, you just can't over a full season. Maybe a one-night fix. But another thing that does is it kind of takes away from other lines because their depth scoring is an issue. So you want to put one of Nylander and Marner with Matthews and the other one with Tavares, so you have a little bit of parity, right? Instead of just here's their first line, you're going to score the goals. Well, they can't play 60 minutes.
Because there's nothing that's shittier that is like, okay, if our first line just changed off and we're going with line two and line one didn't score and it's a critical part of the game, there's nothing worse than being like lines two coming out, dang, when's line one coming back out? Having the options on both lines, it's such a good feeling.
You can't just roll out line one, expect to score, and then the second, third, fourth line is just like, all right, let's just keep the puck in their end and go in the forecheck and keep possession.
Yeah. That's the oxygen breathers until our superstars are healthy, are ready to go back out.
Not sustainable. So yeah, I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah.
I actually am excited to see this team in the playoffs. Just to see.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. It feels good. It feels different. It's not, oh geez, it's another year of Matthews is lighting it up and Marner's getting his assists and Nylander does some crazy things, but geez, we lose some bad games and man, we still complain about our defense being unreliable and where's this depth scoring? It just feels a little bit better than every previous year since the core four have been installed.
It's the structure, it's the coaching.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the culture. I think it's the play style. I think it's the focus on physicality and defensive soundness and let your goal scorers score. But we're a defense primary team that is responsible. And the goaltending situation feels unbelievably. And and this speaks to like a lot of previous conversations we've had before where, our Wooler Stolars the best goalie available in the league. Well, some of their stats have been really good, but I think that's also padded a little bit by the defensive soundness, the giving them easy looks to make the save. Great. But off the stats sheet, looking at them, they're not unbelievable they're not Vasilevsky that, in 2017, but they're reliable enough and consistent enough and the guys are supporting them where they look really good. They're putting in the effort because go look at how Buffalo's doing where they have great, good, decent goaltending being left out to dry. It's completely different. So I think having that defensive supportiveness has just, and frankly, Wool not really having much play time last year and having Stolars come in, fresh guys who are just part of this brand new system. I like that it's not goalies who I'm glad Sammy's not here. And I didn't, whatever, outside of Sammy's ability, I like that Sammy is gone and it hasn't been a goalie who has kind of the negative history with the team. It's fresh guys who are kind of part of this new age that seems to be being built under Berube.
Yeah.
A lot.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think we're going to go win the cup this year and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I still think there are issues. We touched on depth scoring. I think that's a big thing. I think you need to, I don't, for the first time in a long time, you're not going in the deadline and saying we need to go to get a defenseman. I think you're trying to get some depth scoring. I think that's the goal.
And you know what? That's reasonable to acquire.
Yeah.
Like going to a deadline. What are you going to go get Erik Karlsson? Huh?
It's a lot easier to get a winger, a depth scoring winger, than it is to get a center or a defenseman or a goalie.
Somebody who's on a team and frustrated, a Kakko. Like that style of a guy who just wants out. He's decent enough. Is he a superstar? Probably not, but can it still improve your team just that little bit more to where in a game 6 or something like that, and there's 5 minutes left, and he's on the ice, or maybe not 5 minutes. We get second period, and you need a tying goal. Suddenly, it's there. Fantastic.
There's going to be guys on bad teams that are ready to leave. But yeah, I'm just excited to see what they can do.
Yeah,
I'm not going to sit here and say I think they're going to roll everyone and blah blah blah. And Florida's still going to be the team to beat in the East. And we're going to have to, if we're going to go deep, we're going to have to play them at some point. Most likely, right? So, but
them or even if it's Boston's not going to be a walk in the park.
No,
Boston shows up every year in the playoffs.
Yeah, but the way we're playing this year, we have the style of play that can beat Boston, and we have the talent level that can beat Boston. The talent level has always been there to beat Boston, but the style of play was not there to beat Boston.
Yeah.
But now you have both, and the Boston has gotten weaker as well. But just using them as an example, Tampa is kind of the same deal. I think style of play, and we have beaten them in the past. But Florida is going to be the tough one. But all you can ask for is improvement. I don't expect us to win the cup. I don't think we're ready.
Florida's phenomenal, but Florida's dwindled. Like, they're not unbeatable. They have immense talent. Don't get me wrong. My gosh, did you see that Barkov highlight the other night where him skating through like 3 guys with the puck, controlling it? Unbelievable. But it does feel a little bit different. You have a little bit more ambition, and it doesn't seem as delusional as previous years of being like, look at those Matthews goals. It's like, okay, but can we go deep into a playoff run?
Yeah.
I'd love it. I would be thrilled if we got to a conference final.
I truly believe this. Looking at the other division in the East, I think whoever wins, if the Leafs break through the first round, because I'm going to assume that Florida Toronto is going to finish first and second in the Atlantic, whatever order it is. If they were to both win their first round series, whoever wins that series is the representative in the final from the East. Based on the way the Rangers have been horrible, the Devils have been really good, but their style of play is still not suited to the playoffs. Carolina, it just has never really worked for them in the playoffs. And then maybe just we have that little bit more talent level. Who else is in the mix? Honestly, Washington might be the best bet in the Metro, the style of play. But even then, the talent level still won't be as high as our talent level.
Right. You're going to have some guys on that team that are really stepping up that don't have a whole lot of playoff experience.
Yeah. Not that we have a ton of positive playoff experience anyway. We have a lot of negative playoff experience. But it's just to say that
our playoff experience guys are 27 years old. Their playoff experience guys are either 35 or 23.
Yeah. It's just to say that, like, I'm looking forward to feeling comfortable enough that in the way we play that, okay, we could do some things here, right? Before it was just kind of like you're hoping, but you don't really expect it.
Yeah.
And it's a little different this year. For me, I'm not saying, oh, it feels different. We're going to go light everyone up, blah, blah, blah.
It feels different, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, okay. I'm not saying that. Yeah, that's all I have on Leafs. Anything else on the Leaf?
No, it's been a fun little run here. I'm excited to see if they can put some more chemistry together.
All right. So we got a bunch of moves here. since we last recorded. There was a lot of trades when we last recorded with Trouba stuff and all that. There's been a lot of trades since then as well. Obviously, the holiday trade freeze is on now, so a bunch of teams wanted to get stuff done before the new year. So first we'll go. St. Louis has acquired defenseman Cam Fowler and a 4th-round pick in 2027 from Anaheim for defenseman Jeremy. Bear with me, Biaka Butuka, and a 2027 2nd-round pick. And the Ducks will also retain 38.5% of Fowler's salary.
Okay. So thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Fowler's been discussed in trade rumors since the beginning of the year, so it's not really doesn't come as a surprise. The team that he went to may be a little bit of a surprise because maybe you expected him. He's a vet guy. He's got tons of experience. Maybe he goes to a team that's maybe more of a playoff staple, where St. Louis is kind of more hopeful than they are. They're nailed into a playoff spot, right? But Doug Armstrong has shown that he's not scared to make moves to try and make the team better. He doesn't want to rebuild. He wants to win. I don't think it's a really good deal, honestly, for St. Louis. They get a quality veteran defenseman in there, and they have some injury problems on D. And they also don't have to pay his full salary.
I think it's a good pickup. Like, I like Cam Fowler. I think he's a solid defenseman. I think Anaheim absolutely sucks. So it's like they're trying to kind of get younger. I don't know much about this guy who came from St. Louis and who went to Anaheim. I just don't.
No, he's a prospect. So you haven't really seen much of him.
So I think it makes sense for what Anaheim seems to be trying to do. They're trying to be like, okay, we're trying to win in 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And they're getting rid of some of their vet guys. Go see if you can do something. I agree where it's like I didn't suspect St. Louis was going to be trading for old assets in a win now mentality.
Yeah.
Because Cam Fowler is absolutely at the end of his career. If not this year, then the next year or two. I
wouldn't say that close, but he's like early 30s. He's not.
I think he's like 34 at a minimum.
Let's see. Regardless,
91.
33.
Okay, so marginally younger than I thought he was. So you got 3 years with him.
Yeah,
maybe a little more.
You still have a decent amount of time with him. I think the Ducks too. They brought Trouba in, and the Rangers didn't retain any salary, so the Ducks needed to maybe offload some cap a little bit too, if they want to make moves. Because they have a lot of young guys, but over the next couple of years, it's going to be time for the Ducks to get better. They can't keep doing this every year. The Ducks are going to be like those teams in the Bermuda Triangle out east. You got to start taking steps here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like the deal. I think it just works out both ways. Maybe the salary retention not the greatest thing for the Ducks, but I'm sure they have a lot of cap space anyway, so it doesn't really. Yeah. Okay. The next deal was Seattle has acquired forward Capo Kakko from the New York Rangers for defenseman Will Borgen, a 2025 third and a 2025 sixth. So obviously we discussed this on the last episode, the Rangers making more moves, and I had mentioned Kakko. And
are you an NHL insider now?
I just think that Lafreniere and Kakko have it's kind of been for a while people saying these guys aren't what we expected them to be, and Lafreniere has taken a little bit of a step offensively. I don't think people realize how good of a two-way forward Kakko is, though. I don't think people understand. He's a really good two-way forward, especially for a winger. So he does hold value. He isn't the goal scorer people expected him to be, but he holds a ton of value as a solid depth forward who can play up and down the lineup. He gets you on play the penalty kill. You maybe get him on the second power play. And Seattle doesn't exactly pop off the page with tons of offensive talent, so he should be in the mix there.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win. Like this is it really is kind of a good deal both ways. Kako gets a chance. Seattle gets a little bit better offensively. Because he does still have some goal scoring ability. And then I don't know, say his name, Bjorgsen.
Oregon. Yeah, I don't know much about him.
He's decent.
I think Seattle won the deal, if I'm being honest. I think Kako's underrated. Again, obviously he had high hopes to be the next big goal scorer.
Yeah.
But that never panned out. But I think he's a very solid depth option. And he fits Seattle perfectly. I think his style of play fits Seattle, how Seattle wants to play perfectly. And I think it's a fresh start for him.
I think that's just as important as where he goes. That's
get on the limelight a little bit. Yeah. The next deal was Pittsburgh acquires defenseman Pierre-Olivier Joseph from St. Louis for future considerations. So this was kind of a result of the Fowler trade. The Blues had too many defensemen, so they had to deal a defenseman. And Pittsburgh brought Joseph back. Joseph was on Pittsburgh last year, and he signed with St. Louis in the offseason. And it kind of sucks for the guy because he was playing with his brother in St. Louis, and it was a big thing. And that kind of sucks. He gets traded he's not even halfway through the first year together, but
right back to where he came from. That's
the business, and right back to the same team he came from. So, but obviously Pittsburgh liked him enough to bring him back. So I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe they were probably just too up against it against the cap because Erik Karlsson makes $1 bajillion, so they couldn't afford to pay him the whatever. Not a lot that he makes. Joseph's a decent depth defenseman. He's not going to move the needle too much. It was just kind of we need roster space.
We got to unload.
Yeah. And then the last deal was Montreal. It's straight 1-for-1. Montreal acquired defenseman Alex Carrier from Nashville for defenseman Justin Barron. It's kind of a Montreal gets a guy that is maybe better now, as opposed to they have a ton of prospect defensemen that maybe aren't quite ready yet. And they get a guy in who can play now, who's an NHL ready defenseman now, who's going to be a solid two-way player.
This speaks to the exact point you made about Montreal. I don't know if it was last episode or the one before, but it's like they need to be taking more steps now. They need to be we understand you're not going to win now, but you need to be getting better now.
You can't be getting blown out every night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know much about Justin Barron, but it's just a crowded prospect room, especially on D for the Habs. So it's probably a good change of scenery for him as well.
With them, switch it. Try something new.
Yeah.
Bring in some new faces. Because whatever's happening right now isn't working.
Yeah, and both sides, right? So Carrier hopefully can help out the young guys a little bit. Hudson and all the guys coming through. So Gooley and all those guys. That's the last trade I had. Some more stuff in Rangerland. We can't stay away from the Rangers. I'll do the big news after. I'll do the little news first. So Chris Kreider was a healthy scratch today.
Oh boy.
That might tell you something. Maybe there's another move on the horizon here after the trade freeze.
Don't want to trade an injured asset, maybe?
Just after the trade freeze, maybe. Okay, this guy's gone. Yeah.
It kind of screams it.
Yeah. And obviously he's had a lot of trade rumors pretty much since the season began. So we talked about the Rangers ad nauseum last week, so we're not going to get too much into it. But then the big news is the Matt Rempe hit on Heiskanen. I don't know if you saw the hit.
Why are you trying to kill somebody?
Yeah. So Rempe got suspended 8 games for his hit on the head and the hit from behind on Heiskanen.
What the hell was that?
Yeah. elbow high on a guy who's got his numbers to him.
It screams a little bit of a guy who drank his own Kool-Aid a little bit too much since he made waves. What was it, last year?
Rempe,
And like just trying to stay relevant. I don't know.
Listen, I think the Rangers are better with Rempe in the lineup because he brings a little bit of energy and a little bit of physicality that the rest of the lineup doesn't have. Rangers are a soft team. That's why they're not successful when it matters.
I get it. I just
but you need to reel it in.
Go home
I'm
to
not saying do this, but he needs to reel it in.
Yeah, a lot.
He's played 22 NHL games in his career so far, which seems weird that he has this much recognition. He's only played 22 games. He's played a quarter of one NHL season, and everyone knows about this guy. Yep. Anyway, in the 22 NHL games that he's played so far, he's been ejected from 4. In 22 games, he's been ejected 4 times.
He has twice the amount of ejections than I believe it is career points.
Probably.
Something like that. I saw that that was something I saw floated around. Didn't fact check, but it was like he has 2 points in his career. Or maybe it was 2 goals.
Imagine his penalty minutes for this era.
You can't be doing this stuff. Like,
yeah, he has 2 points.
I'm all for physical play. I'm all for drop him when needed. I'm all for. I understand you need some physicality and like he's recognizable. He's charismatic, but that was an insane play.
That was just stupid. Yeah. You know what? He's got 2 points, but you know what he does have? He has a goal in the playoffs. There you go.
Oh, jeez. Oh, yeah. No.
But 22 games, ejected 4 times in 22 games is wild. That's a crazy stat.
Yeah.
He needs to reel it in big time. Like I said, I think the Rangers, when he's in the lineup and being physical and just causing shit. You want guys like that in your lineup. You want your Marchands and Bennett's and guys like that. Except Rempe's actually big and can actually take care of himself. But you can't be putting yourself in that situation. If you want to be in the lineup, you can't keep doing these things because now you're suspended and the team isn't going to want you in the lineup because you're just a liability. I do believe that the Rangers play maybe a little more freely offensively when he's in the lineup, and just overall physicality. They're not a physical team, so they kind of need that. But like we're saying, you need to that's ridiculous what he did.
You can't concentrate the entire physicality of a team into the spirit of one guy.
Yeah, exactly. I just can't. If he has to change a lot if he wants to stay in the league, and it is not ability wise. I think not saying he's going to go like Lamp, but like as a 4th line player, I think he has the ability to be a very solid 4th line NHLer. But you got to reel it in. You can't keep doing this. Anything else on Rempe?
What a head of hair.
Absolute
great head of hair.
Absolute tree too.
Yeah, that's it. No, reeled in Rempe. I want to like you, but it's tough to like you when you're doing shit like that.
All right, let's get away from the Rangers. Enough of Rangers talk. We mentioned before Jack Campbell got the call back up to Detroit from the A with the injuries. Obviously, he didn't get any game time, but it's just good to see him come back in the NHL after whatever I'm not sure what he's been through, but he was in the assistance program. So good for him. He hasn't gone back down since. But the next thought, a couple of random notes here. So you remember we were talking about Tyler Johnson with Boston. He had a PTO, and then they didn't sign him, and then a couple months in they signed him. Well, this week they put him on waivers for purpose of contract termination. What's he been there? 2-3 weeks.
Boston is another dumpster fire that seems to be managing somehow.
And it's mutual. It was mutual contract termination, which seems very strange on the player side that it's mutual. So obviously there was some disconnect there.
Yeah.
because otherwise they would have signed him right away at the beginning of the season. They waited and didn't sign him until later, and they brought him in. It didn't last long, and then mutual. It's not like the team just said, "Okay," it's not like Trouba, where the team just like, "We're putting you on a waiver, so waiver no move or you're gone." This guy is agreeing to it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Who knows? That could be for a wide range of reasons, but it just smells weird.
Who knows? But Boston is weird. They are in a playoff spot, but I think that's more down to the rest of the Atlantic just being weak this year.
Yeah.
Outside of Toronto and Florida, even Tampa has been kind of meh. And then obviously we talked about the Bermuda Triangle plus the Habs a lot. Some positive news. Winnipeg has signed Kevin He to an entry-level deal, making him the first Chinese-born player to sign an NHL contract. Growing the game.
See this?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's very cool.
Good to see. Growing the game in different markets.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready for we're getting in the real stuff now.
Okay.
I feel passionately about this next subject.
Boy, I'll lean back for this one.
So, Zach Hyman has been back to his best recently. He's back to scoring.
Right.
He took a shot on Bouchard. Bouchard took a point shot the other day, and it deflected and caught Hyman in the face. And he broke his nose.
Saw that.
Okay. He goes in the dressing room, does what he needs to do, comes back out, plays the rest of the game.
You have the bucket on, I think.
He's had the bucket on for a week or so now. But still scoring, still buzzing around, still getting it done. When we talked about the Four Nations picks, you were very heavy on the who's playing well now.
Oh, jeez.
And I was a little scared of that because it's October, November. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're not going to take a guy who's doing absolutely nothing. But you can't take a guy based off of 1 or 2 months of play, or not take a guy based off of 1 or 2 months of play when it's like player of this caliber. Yes, Hyman struggled out of the gate, but if you showed a little bit of patience, now you have, and Hyman should have got the benefit of the doubt, especially because he has chemistry with who is most likely going to be your first line center. And he can adapt and he can play anywhere up and down the lineup. He can kill penalties, he can play the power play. He scored 50 goals last year. I know he plays with McDavid, but this is the perfect guy in the room, does whatever it takes. We talked about Boston. Don Sweeney is Team Canada's GM. I would love to know who makes the decisions in hiring the GM, because Don Sweeney should not have been the pick. Do I think Team Canada's team is horrendous and I'm going to bitch about this player and this player and this player? They're all good players. But all the players that he took have not been as good at that role for as long as Hyman has been.
I'll remind you, I took Hyman on my team.
I'm just not saying you didn't take Hyman. I'm just saying you were more likely to take players based off of what they were doing that week. Which is, you can't do that.
I understand what the point you're making, and I agree to it to an extent. I think it is a good analogy is would you have taken Timo Meier at all last year? Look at him this year, is phenomenal. Last year, horrendous most of the season.
Timo Meier.
And I think Timo Meier was horrible last year.
Take him for who?
What?
What do you mean Timo Meier? Take him for who?
Just to have him on a team. I know, just as an analogy, just as a player who we all know is an unbelievable player, but had one off year.
Swiss, right?
Yeah. Okay. But a guy who's an unbelievable player, but last year it was 3/4 of the way through the season before he did anything.
For sure.
And so it's you do have to consider, okay, they're struggling this year, and like it's not even the fact of okay, put them in a different environment and they're going to do better, but I think like the mental impact that struggling to produce has, especially if it's a really extended period of time. If you're a guy who walked into this season as like a high hopeful and you've done nothing for October, November, and into December, regardless of your name recognition or your history, I think there has to be a lot of caution about, well, why would we take him? He's probably in his own head. This is a 4-game series. This isn't a full season to figure stuff out and get through adversity. It is I want players who are producing at least somewhat consistently now. And I agree. Like I think the strongest argument for Hyman is you're right. Like the history is there, and it's with what is very likely your number one center. So if that's your number one center, why not give him the guy who is, you're right, can play up and down the lineup, who can put some goals in, and who has that team chemistry and has been there for a little bit with playing with McDavid, knows how to read McDavid, knows how to play with McDavid, because that's an ability in itself. Playing with a caliber of player of an Austin Matthews, of a McDavid, of a Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby a little bit easier because he's so freaking amazing. But it's like, I think there is something to still be said for, you can't be like underperforming to such an extent that it's worrisome that you like, this is 4 games. You have to have some people who are at least doing okay. Sure, maybe there's been a trough, but there has to have been a little bit of a peak at least 1 week.
My counter to that would be, one, Hyman, we talk about just McDavid, but Hyman has a history of playing with high-level talent, not just McDavid. In Toronto and in Edmonton, history of playing and being successful with high-level talent. But it's not just to say that, oh, Hyman's not scoring. The point being is that even if Hyman is not scoring, he brings other things to the table that are useful. He's not just only scores goals, and if he's not Mark Scheifele, okay? Mark Scheifele scores a lot of goals, but what else does he bring to the table? Not much else, which is why he didn't make the team, right? There are guys like that, and if you're going to say all that about Hyman, so why would Brad Marchand make the team in June?
Listen, I'm not saying why is Brad Marchand on the team? I have no idea. I still don't know, and I know he's frankly having an okay season from what I recall, but I don't know why Brad Marchand's on the team.
At the very least, Brad Marchand shouldn't have been one of the first 6 players named.
Yeah,
at the very least.
I think that like there's a degree of you have to watch the games. You have to watch the games. Is this player like just getting this unlucky consistently?
And if you actually look at the numbers, he was, because he had the chances. He was still getting the chances. The puck just wasn't going in the net. And yeah, I get what you're saying. It's only 4 games, blah, blah, blah. But the 4 games are in February. The 4 games aren't tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think that's the strongest point is like, okay, it is. You're selecting this team in, December, November, and the games aren't until February. Yeah. Someone can have an absolutely meteoric rise or a meteoric fall in the next 2 months.
Exactly. I would imagine if there's an injury, might be the first forward.
Yeah, I think that's very plausible.
Yeah, unless they lose a center, but I think they probably have enough centers in the lineup that they would probably be okay.
You've got enough guys who can play center.
Yeah, that's just that.
This is really kind of irking you the wrong way, isn't it?
And I don't not like Edmonton. I have issues with the way McDavid is hyped, but I don't have.
Right.
Outside of that, like I don't hate Edmonton. I just don't like it. That's a player that would be really useful, and you have tons of depth guys on that roster, on Team Canada roster, who are going to play their role very well, but none of them are can put the puck in the net like Hyman can.
I think there's a lot of validity to criticizing some of these Team Canada picks. Like, it just seems somewhat bizarre. Marchand being one of them, Parayko being another one of them.
I wouldn't 100% agree with Parayko because I think those are the players that are similar types that would bring more and are a little bit better skaters.
Just some of it just feels bizarre. It does feel like are we sure this is the
Yeah.
team?
And when you I did a little bit more of a deep dive on a guy like Seth Jarvis, and you know what, Seth Jarvis I don't think is the worst pick in the world. It came out of left field, but he plays first line minutes on Carolina. He almost scored 35 goals last year.
I like
He
Seth
was
Jarvis.
close. He was very close to point per game player last year. So
And
he can put the puck in the net and he can play a role. So I don't hate the pick,
frankly,
and he's fast and he can move.
and that might be another, hey, let's get this guy some international play. I like
Yeah.
Seth Jarvis.
Yeah,
And he's 27, so he just haven't had much international play up till this point.
yeah. But yeah, like we talk about Marchand, and I'm not saying Marchand's a bad hockey player now, but he's not as good as he used to be. And you kind of want to bring in the next generation. There's going to be freaks like Crosby that are like, it doesn't matter how old you are. Marchand is not that. I'm sorry. He's not that.
Yeah.
It's time to bring in the next generation. There are plenty of, you have Sam Bennett on the roster. You don't need Brad Marchand too.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same player. I just said, like a guy like Wyatt Johnston, okay? Super young player.
You love this guy.
I know, but this is the point I'm going to make. I don't think I probably don't think based on how he's played this year, Wyatt Johnston should be on Team Canada. I like him a lot. I think he will be in the future. He's a very good player, but he hasn't shown enough in the past. His sample size, obviously, sample size is tiny. He's a super young player, so you can't really compare it. But like, he comes in last year, has a really good season. He doesn't come flying out of the gates this year, and he doesn't. He's a smaller guy. He doesn't really do. He is a decent two-way player, but he's still super young. He still can get better at those things. Where it's more, it's maybe like he's not ready yet. But so a guy like that, that's cold. I get not making the team, right? I completely understand that. But a guy like Hyman, who's been there, done that, he has experience. He has playoff experience. He's played with big names, with McDavid, with Draisaitl, with Matthews, Marner, whoever. Right? He's played and been successful with those names, and he can do the intangibles. That's just a guy you want on your roster. If he was the worst player in the league and he wasn't scoring and he was awful at everything else, I would say don't take him. But he's still doing other things right, and the chances were coming. They just weren't going in. And now they are going in, and you see the complete opposite, right? Now he can't stop. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying you can't pick a team based off of how they played for 2 months. Right?
I agree. I think it should influence. I don't think it should be the core dictating factor.
But just Hyman, just like we talked with Tom Wilson with the big cheek last week, Hyman breaks his nose, gets back out there, still buzzing around. And I saw it. Well, we'll get to the game that I went to in Chicago, but Tom Wilson's still wearing the bubble too, and he's still buzzing around. So, yeah. Okay. Anything else on that?
No, I think it's a valid point.
Okay, so we'll go out west. So there's been a lot of rumors in Vancouver that it's not new. It's over the last couple of years, but it's gained a lot of steam recently. That Pedersen and JT Miller don't get along. It's become an issue in Vancouver's locker room. But now the team is actually addressing it, and they're saying it's not the issue. Miller basically said, I'll go get Petey right now, and we'll do the interview together if that'll make you happy. Like, leave us the fuck alone here.
I didn't see that.
But yeah, I just wanted to maybe touch on it just to say, like, do we think it's true? Because there's a lot of people who say it's true. And do we think it matters?
Is it true? Who knows? The only people who know are the people in that locker room.
Yeah.
Is it an issue? Maybe. Like, genuinely, maybe. If they're gonna put their differences aside, because number one is, why don't you get along? Is it play style? Is it hockey philosophy? Like, what is it? What's the issue here, guys?
I think maybe Miller's a pretty outspoken guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't hide his feelings, and maybe he feels like Pedersen could do more based on his ability. And I think Pettersson's overall game could probably be a little bit better. And I think Miller's probably, and I think it's well known that Miller has called him out, but I don't think it's just Pettersson. I think it's the whole team. That Miller, when Vancouver has struggled in the past, has called out the team. Pre-Tocchet the year before, when they were terrible, Miller was calling everyone out in the media, in public. So this isn't like some new thing, but it's just like they're a good team now. If they want to have a shot at a deep run, do we think these guys need to get along?
Get along? No. Play together? Absolutely. I don't think they need to get along.
No, they don't.
There's nothing wrong with a little fire in the room, a little healthy competitiveness on the same team. It can turn into I'll show you I'm better. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, this is a lot to do with just overall individual contributors pushing each other. There's nothing wrong with that. How you're doing it matters. Sure, you're still on the same team. You can't be ridiculous. But to say, you know what, I just think I'm better than you. Shout out Tom Aspinall. I think that, like, I don't think it matters. And unless it's crossing boundaries or crossing lines, I think it can serve as a good function. If they can go out and you know, they're cordial with each other, do the interview, do I think that proves anything? No. Do I think it's a problem? Probably something. It's not emerging for no reason. But do I think it's like impacting either directly? I think the only person it's likely to impact is Pettersson. And do I think Pettersson's that soft? I don't think so.
Which is what everyone's saying, because when Miller was out, Pettersson was buzzing. Pettersson had a bad start to the year. Miller had his leave with absence for a bit. Pettersson was playing well, and then since Miller's been back, Pettersson has not been playing well again. And here's what I think. I don't think you need to get along to be successful. I think that JT Miller is a winner. I think he wants to win.
Yeah.
And that's not to say
the NHL.
That's not to say I think Pettersson's not a winner. I don't think he wants to win. I think JT Miller's just that personality, and he's a little bit older, so it's a little bit less time, whereas Pettersson's a younger guy. He's got time. Okay, but I think JT Miller sees Pettersson, and he sees a lot Pettersson. And he says, we're the best two forwards in this team, and we need us alongside with Quinn Hughes. We need to carry this team. We're the main guys on this team.
There is an element of, you just signed that big contract, buddy. Let's go earn it, eh?
That's all those rumors in the last season was, will Pettersson get traded? Well, they said no. They signed him the big deal. He's here to stay. Miller's here to stay. They've said that publicly. Hughes and Tocchet have both said in the media, listen, it's time to stop this shit. Pettersson and Miller both said it. I think maybe Pettersson thinks Miller's maybe being a hardo, and Miller is hard on him because he sees a lot in Pettersson, and he knows that Pettersson, if we're going to win the cup, Pettersson has to be that guy. And Miller knows that, and I think that's why he pushes him. And maybe they don't always get along. You don't have to get along.
The tactic may not be delivering, but there's nothing wrong with trying to get more out of the guys who are in the room.
Exactly. Watch, for those of you, which I'm sure a lot of you have watched The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. His teammates didn't like him, but they respected him because whatever he gave them shit about, he said, you need to do this. He would do the same thing. He wasn't asking them to do something he wasn't willing to do. And that's
even the Kobe interviews. The Kobe was the same way.
Yeah, Kobe and
was
Shaq,
nice to get along with.
Kobe and Shaq hated each other. And they won 3 times in a row. But you don't have to get along.
You don't have to get along. You have to set the expectation. You have to perform when it counts and do your job, because that's what this is. End of the day, you were sports entertainers. You're athletes, professional athletes. That's a job.
Yeah, I think Miller is just trying to get the best out of Pettersson. And I don't know if Pettersson takes it the wrong way or if it's just people overblow it. I don't know. But
it's probably a tale of two truths right there.
I think people need to calm down. I think they need to relax. I don't think either players get traded. They talked about it on Elliot Friedman talked about it a little bit. I don't know if it was today's episode or Friday's episode of his podcast. I think it was today. Um, that he basically said, we're not going to talk about it for a month now. This is the last time I'm going to talk about it. What did he say? Basically he said, like, if Vancouver was going to do these things, they're going to make these moves, they would have done it already. They wouldn't have signed Pettersson on that big ticket. And he compared it to Tampa Bay when Tortorella was the coach. Tortorella and LeCavalier didn't get along. Obviously, it's a different dynamic. This is player, that was coach-player. But they didn't get along, but the GM said, the player is world-class, the coach is world-class. Neither player is going anywhere. We're going to figure it out. And they went on to win the cup, okay? You don't need to get along. And I'm sure it was the same situation. Torts was probably hard on LeCavalier because he knows LeCavalier is our guy. He's the main guy of the team, and we're going to go as far as he takes us. I think Miller sees that. I think Miller is probably more of a playoff guy, but on a talent level, I think he knows that Pettersson's the best, at least the best forward on the team. Him and Hughes neck and neck for most talented player on the team, right? And he just expects more, and I think that's all it is. I don't think it's people are saying, oh, there's a big fraction in the room and blah blah blah. Come on, man. We're fully grown adults. You're millionaires. You can put your feelings aside and just have enough respect for each other to go to battle, night in, night out. And I know Tocchet definitely feels that way. Did you see what Tocchet said in the media?
No.
So Tocchet basically said, and a lot of people are taking it as like this is a shot at his players, but I don't take it that way. I think it was more of a compliment to Edmonton's players. Basically, he said, we're not the Oilers. We can't play like shit and then get bailed out by two guys, right? We just can't do that. That's to say Vancouver doesn't have talented players, but their talented players aren't on the level of McDavid and Draisaitl. And people, he's shitting on his guy. No, he's not shitting on his guys.
I think that's a compliment.
It's a compliment to the other team, the opposing team. And it's more of a tactic to get his guys moving like, hey, this is the NHL. We got to perform every night if we want to win. You can't take nights off. Doesn't matter how good you are.
Yeah.
But just will they ever go away, these rumors? Because this is like bordering 2 years, 3 years now.
When the standard gets raised, when you start seeing more to both guys, it's the only way it kind of gets addressed.
Like, what does Vancouver need to do this year for people to stop talking about it? Do they need to win the cup? Or they just need to make a deep run?
Not the cup, but they need to go to the second round, and they need to do well in the second round.
But they did well in the second round last year. They lost in Game 7 to the team that almost was a game away from winning.
Maybe they need to beat Edmonton.
If they could, there's a very high chance that they would have to play Vegas and Edmonton just to get to the final.
The media loves the narrative, they do.
Yeah, I don't. Everyone obviously talks about Toronto law and Montreal too. Maybe not as much the English media, but the French media. Montreal's a big thing. Mm-hmm. But Vancouver is the fan base can get pretty toxic too. I think they're kind of the West.
Burn the city down.
Yeah.
When Vancouver didn't win the cup, they almost burned that city to the ground.
Yeah. So it could get pretty toxic out there. All right. On to the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay.
We're only going to talk about 2 of the 3. We're not going to talk about the Wings. There's not much going on there. We'll talk about the Wings next week after we see them play. Do you want the positive team or the negative team first?
Positive
team first. The Sens have won. It was 5 in a row when I wrote this note, and 7 of the last 8. It might be more now. I believe I wrote the note a couple days ago. But the Sens have been good lately, and I think that it correlates with Ullmark playing well.
Yeah, Ullmark playing well,
being healthy. They did lose to Edmonton last night, but prior to that, it was 6 in a row. And 8 of the last 9. So
impressive.
Ottawa's on a run. Kachuk's been good.
More good Canadian teams I like.
Yep. And Ullmark has been playing well enough. And the Sens, with how weak Boston and Tampa has looked this year, you never know if they can keep this up the whole year. How far are they out right now? The Sens are in the last wild card right now. There's 5 teams from the Atlantic in right now.
I'd like to see it. I know. Yeah. Honestly, I think the Battle of Ontario is dead. I don't hate the Sens.
Oh, but the peak, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
Those early 2000 series were the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was awesome.
I'm not going to say I like the Sens. I wouldn't go as far as to say that I'm indifferent. I don't like them, but I don't have massive hatred for them.
I think they're a fun team to watch, and I don't think there's any bad blood between the teams right now. You know what? Sens fans rejoice.
Yeah. Stitzel looks good.
Embarrassment.
Batherson's having a good year. He's been quiet the past couple of years.
Brady's nuts.
Good for them. Yeah, Brady. Obviously, with all the Rangers trade rumors, but if Ottawa's good, I don't think Brady's going anywhere. The only way Brady leaves is if Ottawa continues to not play well and miss the playoff area. That's the only way. Anything to add on the Sens?
Just a Claude Giroux appreciation. I think he's done more for leadership in that team than.
How did I know you were going to say that? Every time we talk about Ottawa, you talk about Claude Giroux as if he's.
I love Claude Giroux. I love Claude Giroux with his
Talk about Jake Sanderson. You love Jake Sanderson. He's been good.
I love Jake Sanderson so much. I think he's a phenomenal defenseman. Yeah. Fun player to watch. Offensive prowess. Let's go, Jake Sanderson. Brady Tkachuk's not. Stutzel's good. Stutzel's developing to a really good player.
The Sens need Stutzel to be the man.
They've got to clean it up. Yeah, Stutzel needs to continue to develop. They've got to clean up a little bit more on defense. I don't think Shabbat's your guy. But it's cool seeing them grow. It feels like they're a couple years behind the Leafs.
If I'm being honest, Shabbat obviously hasn't gotten to the level a lot of people probably thought he would have, but I think that's partly the Sens' fault. I think they gave him too much responsibility too early. Where it was like he was the only defenseman on the team, and this guy was playing pushing 30 minutes a night, and he's super young. You can't do that to a defenseman, a young defenseman like that. I don't think you could do that. I didn't agree with how they handled that.
That's fair criticism.
Yeah. Okay. To the negative. Buffalo has lost 13 consecutive games.
What a joke of a city.
It is not looking good.
Buffalo, New York, you absolutely suck.
They're winning right now.
I just saw that. I'm checking the scores right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Buffalo, I have no answer for them.
They lost 6-1 to Montreal last week, so. Okay.
And they're saying the answer's in the room? Really?
Here's what I'll say. So I read something on Sportsnet this week, and it was talking about how the full tilt rebuild is kind of dead. You see a lot of these teams are doing it, and it hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the teams that are kind of rebuilding on the fly, retooling, Vancouver's kind of done it. The Rangers did it. St. Louis is attempting to do it now. Teams like that. It's been a little bit more successful in the past couple of years than the complete rebuild, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it depends on the situation. I think a team that was in Vancouver's situation, I don't think it was full rebuild because they had good players. They just weren't there yet. Like the Rangers, it was not a full rebuild situation. It was a right to retool for them. I don't necessarily disagree or agree. I'm kind of on the fence about what the article is saying. It was basically saying with the expansion, you have 32 teams now. It's going to be even harder. There's more players. It's going to be really hard to just fully break it down and build it back up now. And the examples used were Edmonton having how many first overall picks in a row all those years, and it basically didn't work until McDavid came along. Listen, I don't think the full rebuild is the issue. I think the way, not just hockey, sports in general, is going is patience is at an all-time low in all sports, whether it's players, coaches, whatever. People think, oh, we watched Pittsburgh. They got their first overall pick. Crosby came in. They were good right away. No, that's not what happened. Pittsburgh drafted Malkin the year before that. They drafted Fleury a couple years before that. Letang took a couple years to develop. And then they brought in vet guys who had the know-how. They didn't just go and say, all right, here's our first overall pick. I'll use Chicago's example. Chicago goes and drafts Bedard, and then the next year they're trying to bring in guys to get good right away. No, you need to get other young pieces around them, and then you get the vet guys with the know-how. Not to mention, I'll get into that when I talk about the game. I'm just using them as an example. So Buffalo is a big one, okay? Buffalo has drafted well. I don't think Buffalo has a problem recognizing talent. I think Buffalo has a problem developing talent. The players, yes, the players need to take some accountability. But when it happens with every single player, at some point you have to start looking inside the organization and saying, what are we doing wrong? Now, Buffalo has Dahlin. Dahlin was, I believe, was a first overall pick. Auer, I believe, was a first overall pick. Byron was a first-round pick, not by them, but he was a first-round pick. Thompson was a decently high pick, and Thompson's taken a while to develop, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But those are the current players right here, right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo has drafted well, but has not had the patience to stick it out and develop the guys further. And if you look at Buffalo, who have they drafted? Same year as McDavid. Eichel was the second pick. Maybe that wasn't more so they knew he was good, but it was more the disagreement on the injury stuff. But they let him go. Next year, he goes and wins the cup. Very good NHL center. Top tier NHL center.
Yeah, top tier.
Yeah. Like just underneath the like McDavid McKinnons. Just underneath that level. Sam Reinhart. Sam Reinhart's a 50-goal scorer. Sam Reinhart's a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah.
Buffalo has an issue developing players. They don't have an issue finding the talent. And if you're drafting that high, it's not difficult to find the talent. It's the teams that are drafting lower where you have to, your scouts are put to the test, right? But the players are there. You just suck at developing it because it's been over and over and over again, and you still can't do it. And then these guys leave and go be successful elsewhere. What is happening in Buffalo that they can't do this?
That's kind of $1 million question, right? Because I think you've got a really strong thesis. I think this checks out. This makes sense. Why can they not do it? Is it coaching? Is it...
But they've run through how many coaches?
And this is what's bizarre.
There's something in the organization that isn't right.
Because you're right. Because it's guys leave, and the next year they win a Stanley Cup.
Exactly. And they're like Eichel is high on the scoring charts this year. He's the first line center when Vegas won the cup. Reinhart, out of nowhere, is making Team Canada scoring 50 goals and is a key contributor on the Stanley Cup champions.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Dahlin leaves, what do you think is going to happen? If Power leaves, what do you think is going to happen? Thompson leaves, what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know what's wrong with that team. I don't know why these players
keep going through the same cycle. They'll get rid of these guys, draft new guys, and they'll be patient with them for a couple of years, and then they'll say, "Oh, it's not panning out," blah blah blah, and then they'll do the same shit. There's some in the organization that's wrong. There's fundamentally in the organization that they're not doing correctly. That they need to look inside and say, "What are we doing? What can we be doing differently to get these guys to that next level?"
We got to get you as a consultant. I don't know. This is you got to go inside, behind the curtains, see what the goods are.
In-depth analysis, eh?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to say that like I didn't disagree with the article. I didn't agree with it. I think it depends on the situation. I think you're right. It is a lot harder now because there's more teams, more watered down. Um, but I think if you get like high end talent like Bedard, like Celebrini in there, like McDavid, Edmonton wasn't good right away.
No.
Took a while. The
Mhm.
Leafs still barely get out of the first round, and Matthews and Marner and
Whoa,
Nylander
whoa.
are in year 8, year 9, year 10 now, right? Like,
Yeah.
it takes a bit. It took McKinnon a while. It took Ovi a long time.
Most of his career.
Crosby is the exception. Crosby isn't the norm. Gretzky's the exception. Gretzky isn't the norm, okay? You can't look at guys like that and say, well, they did this. No, that's not how it works. You need to develop. You need to be patient. Anyway, all that to say, Buffalo is just a dog shit franchise.
You're right. There seems to be something fundamentally wrong.
Lucky for the
just
people in that city, their football team is really good because otherwise they would have nothing to be happy about.
Josh Allen getting the job done.
Yeah, unfortunately for my Lions last week, but it's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Anything else to add on Buffalo?
No, nothing else in Buffalo. It sucks to be viewing some of like this talent seemingly kind of going to waste.
Yeah,
like
your buddy
it's
Luke.
just more disappointing than anything. I'm just disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Okay, an interesting one. So Laine scored another hat trick this week. All 3 goals were on the power play.
The line change, the Patrick hat trick,
Yeah, all 3 on the power play.
I don't know what happened, but Buddy's found a home.
Yeah, it's working. Good for him.
Good for him, because my gosh, has he been through the ringer?
Listen, I think he got hosed a little bit. Whenever there's a generational,
part of it's self-inflicted. Part of it's
yeah,
self-inflicted.
100%, 100%. But I think the media put expectations a little too high on him because it seems like whenever there's a generational talent coming in, so like McDavid comes in, and then at the last minute, everyone's like, "Well, Eichel might push him because a little bit of talent." And Matthews came in, and then everyone's like, "Well, Laine's going to be a better goal scorer than Matthews." People were saying that. That's what it was happening. And it's maybe not so much that they believe it, it's just to create buzz around the draft, right? To maybe say, oh, this could happen, right? There was a little bit too much pressure going in saying this guy's going to be it's the same as Kakko, right? This guy's going to be some elite goal scorer. Now Laine has shown it more than Kakko has, but
yeah.
Laine, like you said, a lot of it is self-inflicted. There has been maybe some attitude issues, maybe you could do more elsewhere other than just scoring, because when you're not scoring, what else are you doing? Nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to have worked out in Montreal, and St. Louis is probably the perfect coach for that, because is there a player who knows more what it's like to be disrespected because of something? Because St. Louis was a small guy at a time where small guys didn't play. And not only did he play, he was one of the best players in the league. So, but obviously, Montreal needs more than that. But it's good, just good for him that things are starting to work out a little better.
There's on the same tone as Buffalo. There's nothing worse than seeing a talented player, crash and burn, or be underutilized.
It's just good to find a home.
Yeah.
Okay. Quick note. Happy we had another retirement this week. We had one last week. Justin Schultz has retired. Happy retirement to him. Just he kind of came in with some buzz. I think Edmonton signed him out of college. And there was a little bit of buzz around him, not a ton, but I don't think he ever reached those heights, but he was a solid second, third pairing guy in his career.
Happy retirement.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to hear about The game I went to, or do we want to go elsewhere first?
No, let's hear the game. This is fun because I don't know much about the overall experience other than some of the photos you sent me. Because those photos looked like the arena was empty.
Yeah, well, a lot of it was warm-ups that I sent you. So Tuesday night, so I went to Chicago this past week, and Tuesday night we went to the game. They played Washington. Unfortunately, Ovi didn't make it back in time, but it sounds like Ovi's gonna be back after the winter break, after the Christmas break here, like pretty soon, which is pretty incredible. But a couple things that I noticed. So in the Chicago crowd, there's obviously a lot of Bedard jerseys.
Sure.
That's the most, as expected. But I honestly can probably say I didn't see another current player on the back of a jersey in the whole rink.
A lot of Kane jerseys, a lot of Taves
I
jerseys.
saw a ton of Tays. And even Kane, I didn't see that many of Kane, and I think that might have to do a little bit with the fact that he signed with the Wings, especially the Wings now.
Recent
maybe,
players playing elsewhere.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of okay, fuck you for going to the Wings, right? I saw a lot, but it was a ton of Tays and a decent amount of Duncan Keith as well. There was a couple of Canes I saw, but just like the Bedard, the people in Chicago, when Bedard touches the puck, it's just like the hopes rise. And when Bedard's not around, it's just kind of like we stuck. But then when Bedard gets a little bit of open ice, everyone gets excited, right? It's kind of like when McDavid came into Edmonton or Matthews came into Toronto. Whenever they touch the puck and they get a little bit of open ice and they can sense something, and there's a little the excitement builds a little bit, building, right? Couple other things I noticed. So I kind of mentioned a little bit when I was talking about the bringing in the vet guys to help the young guys. I think Chicago might have done that a little too early, and the caliber wasn't high enough. I don't like Hall at this point isn't what he was. Bertuzzi isn't that caliber. Foligno gets like first, second line minutes. He played on most teams he played on previously. He was a third, fourth line player, right? So like,
yeah.
I think Foligno's a really good leader. He's very good in the room. I don't think he's not a top 6 player at this point in his career.
Right.
Like he played for the Leafs, 3-4 years ago now? And
yeah.
He was a fourth line guy that long ago. So again, good leader, good guy to have in the room, but not somebody you want on the high end of the ice time for your forwards, right?
Yeah.
Obviously there isn't much else there. I thought Bertuzzi had a decent game. Bertuzzi was running around banging, which is what I like to see, which is why I preferred him to Domi, but obviously he was more money and he probably wasn't worth what he ended up getting. I thought Brody was okay Brody was a lot better in that game compared to what we saw last year in a Leafs jersey.
Sorry, Brody's in Chicago?
Brody's in Chicago, yeah.
Okay, I had no idea he was in Chicago.
Brody's in Chicago. I had that Nazar, however you pronounce it, kid. He's been up the past couple games. I think he might have got set back down, but so he played, and he didn't pop off the page, but a decent player. You could tell there's something there. You give him, but it's going to take a bit. He's not going to pop off. I'm going to be a stud right away, right? He's a decent player, solid player. I think he'll be a good NHL player. He's just not quite ready yet. The player I was most impressed by outside of Bedard was Donato. I thought Donato was buzzing around. He's got decent hands. He bangs, and he's not that big of a guy, but he gets a mix. He gets power play time. He's sound defensively. I was impressed with him. Bedard,
Kurashev.
I don't even know if Kurashev was in the lineup.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see much of him. For Bedard, it's just like some of the stuff he does with the puck. Like you're impressed when you see it on TV, but when you see it in person, it's just different. And just some of the things he can do with the puck is just absolutely incredible. We've talked about, we kind of compared him to Silverberg a little bit, a lot. There is a lot of things he can work on that he can get better at, but he's 19 years old. He's not a big guy. You got to give him time, and you got to get some. You got to be shit and get some good guys, good other young guys in there for you to get good, and then you start putting those vets in around those guys, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just some of the things he can do is just incredible.
That's good.
On the Washington side, Tom Wilson had a really nice night. He was buzzing around, he was banging. I thought the best player in the whole game for both sides was Dubois. That's your boy, PLD. He's having a decent year in Washington. A little bit of a renaissance here. It's back to what he was doing in Columbus and a little bit in Winnipeg. But just he was kind of all over the ice, both ends of the ice, offensively, defensively, winning draws. He just had a really good game, and I can't say I don't watch Washington every night over LA or whoever he played for, but based on what I've seen the last couple of years, that's the best I've seen him play.
Implements for PLD.
Yeah, I don't love his attitude, but just credit where credit's due. I saw your boy Chychrun. Yeah, I sent you a picture.
How
about Chychrun.
How was the hair? Is it as good in person?
I mean, when you watch a hockey game, flow is just kind of like the status quo. Like there's no, yeah. Who else was in there for Washington that had a nice night? Oh, Mangiapane scored an absolutely dirty goal right in front of us.
I saw the highlight.
Absolutely,
because you had good seats too.
It was we were like,
really good seats.
We were 5 rows up off the glass behind the bench, a little bit more to the not central, a little bit more to the end, but not. It was still on the straightaway part of the rink, behind the benches. I think we were behind the Chicago bench on the left, on that side. And Mangiapane kind of went back between the legs, rounded the defenseman, and then came around the goalie. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. Yeah, it was right in front of us. That was a dirty goal. That was nice to see. Chicago struggled for the first period. Washington was all over in the first. Then the second, Washington took a lot of penalties. Chicago was in the power play a lot in the second and had a lot of good chances, but Thompson kept them in it, kept Washington in it. So it was 2-0 at the end of the second. And actually, Soderblom played really well for Chicago as well, because on the chances, Washington had a ton of chances in the first, and he kept Chicago in it. And then the second, on the couple odd man rushes, he made some decent saves. Early in the third, he made some good saves to keep them in it, and then Chicago came out gunning in the third. And after all that power play time, they couldn't score, but they were scoring a bunch 5-on-5. I think they got a shorty as well. And I thought we were going to get some overtime, going to get some extra hockey, but they closed it out right before that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
such a cool game.
Yeah, it's cool. Obviously, would rather go to a Leafs game more than anything, but it's just it's a different experience going to a game, especially when it's like most of the games that I've gone to have been Wings games, and I was taught to not like the Wings. So basically, every time I go to a game, it's the Wings are playing somebody, and I don't want the Wings to win. I have a clear, this is the team I want to win, right? It was cool to go to a game and just kind of like spectate things. You can kind of enjoy it a little more, maybe.
It's taking
you're not like so hard on one side, right?
Yeah.
It's just cool to see. Like the game we're going to when it's the Leafs and the Wings, I'm clearly going to be more heavily invested, but I might not look at the little intricate things as much, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we went to a couple Tampa games when I was younger, when we were in Florida on vacation, and it was kind of the same idea. But one of them was against the Leafs, so. But we went to a Tampa Boston game. It's different. It's a different experience. I would like to get to more games, but obviously things aren't cheap now. So
yeah.
they have both. Pretty much the game was both goalies played really well. It was a pretty defensive game. In Chicago, I thought they were kind of dead at the end of the first. It looked like, okay, these guys, this is what we expected. They're not going to be very good, but the last two periods they came out and they got it done.
Made it competitive, made it entertaining for you.
I believe Washington was on a back-to-back, and that was the second night of the back-to-back, so that probably helped them a little bit. But overall, it was cool.
Nice.
It was an older barn. They could probably use a little bit of an upgrade. It's a pretty old barn, but it's got lots of character, we'll say. And then we saw a couple historic players, hockey players and basketball players in statue form outside of the arena. I'm sure you hockey players know who it is. We have a little bit of a connection to one. It might not be very positive, but we won't name names unless we already have before. I'm not sure.
Think so.
Yeah.
Keep that a mystery.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. So the NHL announced that starting in the new year, that might be New Year's Eve. The NHL will be releasing quarter-century teams for every team and the whole league, with a new team rolled out every day for a month. So January 1st, they're going to say this is Anaheim's team of the past quarter century, right? So the past 25 years since 2000. And then they're going to go to the next team and the next team and the next team and the next team. And then at the end, they're going to do like the whole league. It's like
kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool. The 3 forwards, 2D, and a goalie, I'm assuming. And then I think the whole league one, they're doing a first and a second team. And it'll be a fan vote, I believe.
That's really cool because I think people have really enjoyed going through like the Four Nations Cup lines and like everything like that. And I think it's generating a lot of interest. I think this is kind of the same vein, and I think it's a smart move. It gets more people talking about hockey and reliving some really, really cool memories too.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be cool. I was thinking maybe it'll be kind of tough to do predictions for that because it's going to be day after day after day. So, but we'll just kind of review them as they go and maybe just say if we agree, if we disagree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw that. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm excited.
Cool. I hadn't seen that actually.
Interested to see. Maybe we do the Leafs or we do the Canadian teams or something, right?
Yeah.
Who we think would make it. Because I believe it doesn't start till at the earliest. It's like January. It's like December 30th or something. I can look it up here. Quarter century teams starts December 30th. And then so it makes sense. The Winter Classic is St. Louis and Chicago. So the first two teams, they're going to do St. Louis on the 30th and Chicago on the 31st.
That's cool.
And then after that, it'll be interesting. Some of the teams will be interesting, like Seattle. Seattle existed for 3 seasons. It'll be different to look at. The Leafs are January 4th. So maybe we do our predictions for the Leafs next episode.
I like that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yep. Okay. I kind of touched on a little bit. The World Junior starts on Thursday. I don't have a ton of knowledge on junior hockey, not as much as I used to. I was around it a little bit, so I paid attention to it more than what I do now. It's a lot harder now that I'm not around it, and it's kind of like, okay, you're not going to watch a junior game over an NHL game, right? So
yeah. You're just more involved in the like with the spits and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I worked at the arena, so I kind of was
Yeah.
exposed to it. So you kind of paid attention a little bit to it, and the spits were really good when I was growing for a couple year period before I started high school, where it was kind of like a big thing. They won back-to-back Memorial Cups, and they had a lot of talent on those teams. So I kind of paid attention to all that, and that's when Canada was winning the World Juniors every year. I don't know about you, but I watched that tournament obsessively.
Oh, all the time. Me and my friend Tyler, we'd set up and we had snacks, and it was just us, and we had PlayStation in that game.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say, there's a couple guys that I'm looking at. That Gavin McKenna kid is a big prospect people are talking about. Obviously, Easton Cowan, a little bit of Leafs influence. We'll be looking out for him. And then the U.S. has some big talent as well. The only thing I'll say, I was really disappointed in Canada last year. Not so much like the result. Obviously, like Canada, you should at that very bare minimum be in the semifinal of every single tournament you're in, at the bare minimum, and even then you're expected to win. Like if you don't win, it's a disappointment for Canada. But to not even get to the semifinal, like you got to get to the medal round, right? But I thought that Canada's team last year just seemed kind of like all skill guys, no guys that wanted to do the dirty work, and it was just kind of like we're Canada, so things are just going to go our way. No, you still have to do the work. It's not what it used to be, where we just dominated every single tournament and we're just better than everyone else. Teams have caught up. There's tons of talent out there, and you're not going to be the best team every year, which has been the proof is in the pudding over the last decade, right? We've had some really good teams. We're the best team, and we're always in the mix, but we're not always the best team. I don't want to see. Basically, last year they were soft, and they thought they were entitled to win. I don't want to see that. I never want to see that in a Canadian hockey team. So, and then I believe we have. So it's in Ottawa, so we're gonna have one of the ridiculous times. We can watch at decent hours. So they got Finland on Boxing Day, and then I know they have the U.S. on New Year's Eve. So back to that, because I don't believe it was a big thing last year. I don't think they had a big matchup based on what the divisions were. So Canada's Finland on Thursday at 7:30, Latvia on Friday at 7:30, which we'll miss that one because we're at the game, but it's Latvia, so I think we'll be okay.
Latvia,
yeah. And then the Sunday we got Germany at 7:30, and then Tuesday, New Year's Eve, we got the U.S. at 7:30. So all night games, which is good. None of this daytime shit. We'll wait with the other teams playing the day, and yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of talk about it next week.
I'm excited because it's kind of a new faces showcase. So that's cool.
See some of because the first overall pick isn't necessarily a slam dunk this year, so you can see some of the guys that are in the mix for that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I got for hockey. You got anything else for hockey?
No. Figure it out, Buffalo. That's kind of the sentiment.
Okay, so either you want to do our segment or do you want to do non-hockey stuff first?
Let's do segment because I pulled up an interesting one here.
All right.
And I again. Okay.
Back
Who
check.
is the only?
Did you listen? Did you go get the game?
Did I go get the game?
The game. Remember the game I told you about? You told me you were going to go get it.
I checked Indigo. It wasn't there.
I
don't know if it's just your local Indigo.
Maybe it was just mine. Maybe I'll have to go get it. Or we'll go get it.
I stopped by and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll probably just get it online, honestly. I'll ship it to the house.
Well, I can just get it in Windsor. No big deal. But I'm going to wait till after Christmas because I don't want to go there right now. It's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah. Who is the only player in NHL history to score their first career goal as a game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup final?
Oh, wow. Their first career goal is a game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup final. Like winning the cup or just winning at one game in the final?
Okay. Don't know.
Helpful. Did we fact check it?
I trust it because it's so obscure.
Okay. Okay. The first player to score his first NHL goal. Is this the first player or the only player?
Only.
Only player to score his first NHL goal to win a game in the Stanley Cup final or win the Stanley Cup final, whatever.
Only
Game-winning
player in
goal.
NHL history to score their first career goal as the game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup final.
Wow. Okay. I take that as to mean not to win necessarily win the cup, just one of the games.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint. It's modern era.
Modern, like, what does modern era mean?
Past the 2000s.
Okay.
Post lockout. It's post lockout era.
Okay. Post lockout. So past like 20 years.
Give us your thought process.
I'm trying to think of guys who kind of just came in the playoffs, maybe signed late out of college or something. The first name that popped into my head is maybe Tyler Seguin because he came into Boston and they won the cup that year.
It is not Tyler Seguin.
I wasn't guessing Tyler Seguin. That was kind of the
Well, now
first
you've got an
name.
answer.
Just going through the process.
Okay.
First NHL goal is a winning goal in the cup final. So it's post lockout.
This is
I would
hard.
know. I would know this player, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like I wouldn't
This
have
is
like, not like I
It's
might
not
know
an
the player,
obscure
but I don't
player.
have to go like deep dive. Like it's a decently
No.
well-known player. Okay.
It's not an obscure player. You've said this player's name before. You're not going to think of this player though.
Okay. I know Makar's first games were in and around the playoffs, but it won't be him because they didn't win the cup his first year. They didn't make the final his first year. Post lockout.
Tough. It's tough. I see the gears moving.
I guess I have some questions I can ask.
Yep.
Was it in the last decade?
Yes.
Yes. Was it pre-COVID?
It was during COVID.
During COVID. Okay. That narrows it down. So basically it's gotta be no, it could be the losing team. It doesn't have to necessarily mean they won the cup, it just means they won that one game.
Correct.
Okay, that'll be my last question. Did the player score for the winning cup team? Like, did he play for the team that won the cup? Okay. So it's got to be Tampa. Who did Tampa have that would be first NHL goal? Stanley Cup final. Um, hmm. I don't want to take up all our time. I'm just trying to. I can't think of anyone that would be like young enough that is that relevant. Like Stamkos was hurt in the first final, so I'm trying to think of maybe somebody would have replaced him or something. I get one more question.
Yeah, hold on. I have to backtrack.
Okay.
Okay, so after digging, I don't think this is true.
Okay. There you go.
Now, you do have the statement is true, however, the hint is not. Okay, so there is a player where this is true,
Okay.
where score first career goal as a game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Okay.
The only inaccuracy up till this point has been it's pre-COVID.
Okay. It's pre-COVID.
Yes.
But it's still, but
I'll
it's
tell you
still,
who the initial response was.
but it's
It's
still
a well-known player. You know this player.
Okay.
It's
But
not
it's
a tier
still,
one.
it's still in the last 10 years. It's just pre-COVID.
It's within the last 15 years.
Okay. So 10 to 15 years. What did you say? I was on the right track with something?
Oh, but disqualify it. Disqualify it.
What?
Rear goal as a game-winning goal. First goal as a game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Finals within the last 15 years.
Okay. This is going to be a shot in the dark. I know he played for Chicago at one point, and he was young. Was it Teuvo Teravainen?
It was not Teuvo Teravainen. And it's not the Stanley Cup Finals, Stanley Cup playoffs, sorry.
Oh, it's Stanley Cup playoffs.
It's now changed it. See, this is why AI is unreliable, and we need that game.
Oh, I think we need to bin AI. You just need to find like shit.
We're binning AI.
And we'll
Okay,
just
let's
use the
stop.
game.
We'll hard stop because this is so funny. So the initial answer that it provided was Vasilevsky scoring his first and only goal because of an own goal against Montreal, which is accredited apparently to the last player.
Okay.
And this one happened to be Vasilevsky. So I asked it to provide a source because I was trying to find and make sure.
Yeah.
And it said this is inaccurate. Now, there was one, which is a player who saved his team from elimination in the 2012 playoff.
Okay, you gave me the year.
You can go from
here. You gave me the year, but it's not in the Stanley Cup final.
No, it's just playoffs.
Okay, then that'll still be tough. But 2012. Just tell me. I'm at this point. I'm not gonna.
Chris Kreider.
Chris Kreider. Okay.
The Ottawa Senators, Game 6, Eastern Conference quarterfinals.
Okay. Chris Kreider. Yeah. I probably wouldn't have.
We need this game. We need to bin the segment. It's failed.
Yeah, the AI shit is garbage. You just need to look shit up until we get the game. Obviously.
We'll get the game. I'm just going to order the game on Amazon.
There's an NHL, folks, that we weren't really clear. There's an NHL trivia game that I saw at Indigo that we're going to use, and we're just going to pop out questions from that game, and that's what we're going to use for this segment. Because AI has let us down. Fuck you.
AI is completely unreliable.
Yeah.
So we're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. You got another one?
Okay, No, we're just going to bin it. We're just binning it. We're gonna come back strong. We've had too much radio silence trying to figure out a stat that doesn't exist.
Well, we can always just edit the radio silence out.
That's true.
Yeah.
Any non-hockey related stuff?
Just one. Well, shout out these guys. Got back on track after they lost to Buffalo. So they do the. It's not just father son. It's like kid grandparent tournament in golf every year, where it's like a pro golfer plays with his or her parent or kid or whatever. And obviously, Tiger and his son have played together. Tiger Woods and his son have played together for a few years now. And Charlie Woods, Tiger's son, hit his first hole in one on national television on live TV, with his dad standing right there.
Like, isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's pretty insane. Just that people talk about the pressure like Tiger faced. Could you imagine like if his kid is like obviously he looks really good and he probably could follow in his father's footsteps. Just imagine the pressure that'll be.
You will not have bigger shoes available.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously
Um,
if you watch the Tiger documentary on HBO, different kind of pressure. I don't think he faces the same kind of like parental pressure.
yeah.
But in terms of just like the outside world, because of who his dad is, people are just gonna have the highest expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all I had on outside of hockey stuff. You got anything?
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Yeah,
like,
Merry Christmas.
stay safe out there. It's a busy time of year, but like, just enjoy it.
I'll talk about my trip outside of the hockey game a little bit.
Yeah.
So me and the girlfriend went to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, we went to the hockey game. A
Mm-hmm.
couple of things. Deep dish pizza is enjoyable enough in moderation.
Is it? Okay.
In moderation. I
said-
have had it previously, but I was a lot younger and I could just eat whatever I wanted back then, so it didn't really matter. A lot of cheese, extremely filling. You want to eat it slow, and you don't want to eat it all in one sitting. You want to space it out. The quality of pizza is solid. Still doesn't touch the pizza where I'm from, where we live. Windsor, Ontario, are pizza people. If you don't know, you need to find out. And if you know, you know.
It's so good.
Couple other things. What else did we do that I'm not going to go through the whole vacation. We did a little bit of skating at the park with the world's worst hockey skates. No, they probably haven't been sharpened, and not even hockey skates. They're just like dusty, like learn how to skate skates that we had to rent. And just the blade was terrible. They probably haven't been sharpened in a decade, and they probably get used every day, all day for the whole winter in Chicago. So just brutal. Can't even stop. We went to a science museum. That was cool. We went to the aquarium. That was cool. We did the Navy Pier, stuff like that. We had dinner on Thursday night. I forget what the restaurant was called. Miss something. The best cheesecake, maybe one of the best desserts I've ever had in my life.
Whoa.
It was pistachio cheesecake. It was absolutely unbelievable.
You're
Absolutely.
a cheesecake guy too.
I am a big cheesecake guy, but just like desserts in total, just
Wow.
one of the best I've ever had. Just
High praise.
unbelievable.
Check out the cheesecake at Missy something.
Miss Ricky's. It was Miss Ricky's.
There you go.
Miss Ricky's. Unbelievable, and the food was good as well.
Okay.
Maybe not my type of restaurant. It's like it's more Jack style, where it's fancier. The portions are a little small for me for what you're paying. That's not me. I'm a little give me a greasy spoon, right? But still really good food. Just I need a little more of it.
Need a little more value.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Would you go back?
Yeah, I've been before. This is my second time. I'd go back. It's not cheap though.
Yeah. Canadian dollar sucks right now.
The Canadian dollar. We got lots of drama in Canadian politics, but we're not going to talk about politics.
We're not a political show.
We don't talk about politics. Anything else we did? I think I covered most of it. Anything else to add? Merry Christmas. I think we'll see you before the new year, so we won't say that yet. We'll try and hop. We'll try and hop on. Maybe we're going to the game Friday night. Maybe we hop on Saturday or Sunday.
Do a little post game experience review.
Little post game stuff, and maybe talk about the World Juniors a little bit because there's not going to be too much NHL going on.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have the game by then.
We will. I'm just gonna Amazon it tonight.
He's a
That's
real
basically
desperate.
what's going.
Well, how do you know? But it's Christmas Eve tomorrow. Are you going to get it?
No, I'll Amazon it elsewhere.
You're going
I'm
to
gonna
Amazon
send
it to here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So look out for it.
Yeah, I'll be there. Well, I won't be there tomorrow, but I'll be there Christmas at night on Christmas. But I doubt it'll be there. What's that?
That's sweet.
What?
You're just gonna be there Christmas night.
What do you mean? I don't get what you're saying.
It's sweet. You're spending time with family on Christmas.
Well, yeah, of course.
That's nice. Okay.
And I'll see you Boxing Day, probably, right?
Yeah, I'm coming down Boxing Day.
Cool.
All right, folks.
I wanted another question. What's that?
You wanted another question?
I wanted another question. Give me another question.
You're gonna have to wait. I'm too hungry. We're done. You're gonna have to wait for more trivia.
I can't. I can't wait. We need to do our episodes of quizzes as well. We need to get that started. We've been promising it.
We have a good time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta start that. Maybe Jack answers some questions.
I'll try. I'll do my best. I promise I'll do my best. Am I gonna succeed every time?
I'm gonna ask you a question and you're not gonna get it, but I'm just gonna baffle you by how do I know this?
Okay.
Off the top of my head, here's your question.
Okay.
Who's the first American team to win the Stanley Cup?
First American team, Detroit.
How about this? You don't have to know the team name. You just name the city. That's all I need.
Detroit.
No.
New York.
No.
Chicago.
Don't name the original six. It's not an original six team.
It's not an original six team.
Think about
First
it.
American. I guess I got dominated by the Canadians so much.
Listen, before the original six, they had more teams.
Oh God. Hartford?
No.
Uh,
I'll give you a couple more guesses and I'll start giving you hints.
Connecticut.
No.
The whole state.
The whole state.
Buffalo.
No. All right. I'm going to give you a hint. They have a current NHL team that is relatively new. So, like, they're a new team in the the 21st century. They were an expansion team.
Vegas? It's not Seattle. There's no way Seattle was playing hockey.
The Seattle Metropolitans are the first American team to win the Stanley Cup.
That astounds me.
I believe it was 17. Don't quote me on the year, though. But look it up. See if I'm right. Look at that background, too.
Stanley Cup. Seattle Metropolitans, 1917.
It was 1917.
With Harry Hap Holmes, Bobby Rowe, and Eddie Carpenter.
Yeah, because we know who any of those people are.
Not a shot. That's actually kind of a cool one to have in your back pocket there.
Yeah, you like that?
I do like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Jack did some trivia today.
I did trivia.
We'll be more prepared now.
Once we get this game?
Yeah.
I agree.
and we'll get the quizzes going. All right, folks. It was a little. We ran a little long, so
I'm hungry.
yeah, me too. I'm a little hungry too.
All right, go
All
fuck
right, folks,
yourself.
we got some hockey to watch tonight too, before we get our break here.